Hi, it's Rick back for Pixi Dust Designs. Today we're going to use the Happy Holiday stamp set, the Christmas paper pad, the envelope box dies, and the nesting frame dies to create our box die two different ways. We're going to start off by creating the box as a box, and then I'll show you at another project at the end how to make it into a card. So you're going to cut all your pieces from the same cardstock. I used a whole sheet of cardstock to create all the pieces, and one sheet of 6x6 paper to create the layers here that I'm adding on right now. So I've just cut those out and I'm adding those on. I like to use liquid glue. You can use whatever you like. So I'm just attaching those down, making sure I'm lining them up close to what the plaid pattern is. I probably had it right to begin with, but I'm just going to add those side pieces on. And the only part you do not need for the box is the inside piece. You don't need that. So I just moved it out of the way. So for this, you have two different options. You can take and attach this piece to the base of the box, the back of the box, and use it or not. I sometimes will use it, sometimes I will not. I will just use the other piece instead. But if you use this, you have to be super careful and get really good crisp folds on where the dies create the folds. You want to make sure you get those nice and crisp with your bone folder. I went over this a couple times to make sure everything was nice and crisp and folded in. I am going to add that inside piece right here. This is what I was talking about. You could actually use this on the outside of the flap if you wanted to. I like to use it on the inside so it carries that pattern in. Now we're going to take and crease our folds that the die created on the front piece. So I'm just running those with my bone folder, making sure that everything's nice and crisp. And then the same thing for the bottom of the box. We're going to do that same thing. Make sure that all those core lines are nice and crisp. And then I will take in the bottom of the box and the back of the box, and I start there. And I'm going to add a liquid adhesive to that. And I'm going to line them up on my surface. And then when I got them nice and butted up together, I fold it over and make sure everything's nice and lined up. That way, that back piece and the top piece is already connected. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the front of the box. I'm going to go add adhesive to that longer tab, and I fold it over, and I just line the front up with the score line, press it into place, and then I can start attaching the sides and the rest of the bottom. I will add liquid adhesive. That's usually how I like to do this part. If I'm making it a box, I like to use a nice strong liquid adhesive, and then I will take and pull those corners up and on both sides and pull that back up, line everything up, and then I will fold everything out of the way, take my bone folder and press it into place. That way I know that adhesive will grab, and I have everything lined up perfectly. For the other side, I start at the bottom, and then I will tuck in that side flap. You can do it either way. I prefer to do it this way. This is the way I like to do it. Then I press everything down with my bone folder to make sure everything's adhered. And there is the box itself as a box, the envelope box die. Now I'm going to go ahead and prep some cardstock, and I'm going to stamp my sentiments for both projects. And I'm just stamping those in white ink, and I'm going to add white embossing powder and heat set those. I use the Happy Holidays and the Believe from the Happy Holiday stamp set. And I also have stamped and colored all the images off camera. That way, otherwise we'd be here forever. So I'm going to add my embossing powder to both sentiments. And then I will heat set those off screen until they're smooth and melted, and I'll set it to the side. Now, for closing the box, you have options. You can tie, like I'm doing, just wrap twine around and tie it into a bow. Or you could use a magnet or Velcro, one of the little small magnets to hold it shut, or add in some Velcro and hold it shut. I just use the twine. I like it better. All right, now for the card if we're going to make this into a card, you're going to need the back of the box, the front, and the inner piece. You do not need the bottom to make this into a card. So I'm going to add that stitched decorative edge of the pattern paper to the inside of my box. That's going to be the back inside. I'm going to add the same decorative paper to the front piece of the box and to the sides as well, just like we did when we made the box. Super easy, okay? So we're going to go ahead and add that side, our pieces to the side. And remember, they are stitched, and that's one of the great things about our dies is that they usually have a decorative element, but everything's arranged to where you can find them easily, which makes it super easy to do. All right, I'm going to go ahead and continue, and I'm going to fold over, increase my score lines, just like we did with our regular box. And we're going to do that to both sides. This is where it's going to get a little bit different because we don't have that bottom. I always start with the side and add the adhesive on. And I make sure I get it into those little points as well. And I line it up, making sure that the bottom is lined up and the sides are lined. And then I will flip it over, add my adhesive to the other side. And then I can take and flip it over and line everything up, and now everything is nice and up. Now this is the inside piece, and I did cut this twice. I cut it from the red cardstock and the green cardstock because I'm going to have 2 layers. You don't have to. You can do one. But you can add liquid glue to it, or you could do the dry adhesive strong tape. If I use the tape, I usually have to press the overhanging tape into it. And then I will just slide it into place. I start with the back one if I'm doing the 2. And I line it up all the way up the little tabs up against the sides, but where it butts up against the back. And then I will press it into place with my bone folder. This does get a little tricky. It does take a little time, so take your time and just be careful. Now, for the same thing with the second one, I'm going to add the tape on it. I'm going to do the tape first this time. And then I will cut off any excess overhanging, and then I fold it over. That way, since I have to usually have, the backing comes off easier if I have pressed it. So I made it a little, once cut down a step, really. And then I will take and add this up against that first layer to create a second stand in the box, because we're going to have it like pop up a little bit. Now it's going to make sure that it's lined up at the bottom, press it into place, and then we can start adding our decorative elements to the inside. So for that, I have my little Rudolph and Santa and the snowman from the Happy Holiday stamp set. I'm going to add Santa on the back stand, floating up in the air, and then we're going to add Rudolph. I'm going to attach that glue to the back, and I'm going to add him in the second little shelf. I guess this is what you call it. And then the snowman I'm going to attach to the front of my card. And this does take a little bit larger than an A2 envelope, so you could either make your own or use probably an A6 envelope, I believe is what it is. Or you could use a 5x7 envelope, whatever. So I'm going to add some little highlights with a gel pen to add just a little bit of sparkle there. And then we're going to do our back. So I'm going to take the heat emboss, I'm going to cut another one of the stitched envelope backs, and go ahead and use my nesting frame dies and cut out my sentiments. And I also cut out a second layer that was slightly larger than both sentiments. So I'm going to do the believe, and I just picked the one that the sentiment fit in, and then went up a layer for one of them so that I could layer the cardstocks together. That's the great thing about the nesting frame dies. Now, I'm going to take that white piece that I cut, because that can be for the back of my card where I can write a personal message. So I'm just going to add that to the back, making sure it's nice and lined up, and it has that great little stitching detail that makes it super easy and decorative. Now I'm going to layer up my embossed sentiment onto my other cardstock die cut sentiment that's just slightly larger, thanks to our nesting frame dies. I will do that for the other sentiment as well after I buff off any excess powder from my anti-static powder tool. I'm going to pop on that sentiment right there, and I'm going to use the Believe sentiment for this card, and I'm going to pop it up with some foam squares or foam dots. And I'm just going to make sure I get it where Santa does not cover any of the bee. So I brought it up just a little bit, and then for the box, I had to decide which way I wanted the sentiment to be. So I put it on the back. You could easily put it on the front. Just make sure you don't add adhesive to the top, or only add it to the top. You got to make sure that it's able to open. So I've decided to go to the back, and then I'm going to take and add my little Santa and Mrs. Claus. And I'm just going to pop on a couple of foam dots on the top of them, because I'm going to have it when the recipient opens this up and unties it and the string comes out, Santa and Mrs. Claus will just flip up with the top of the box when it opens. So to add a little bit of Christmas sparkle, I'm going to add some Stardust stickles. And I'm just coming in on Santa and Mrs. Claus on any of the white areas. And I'm going to add it to the star, Rudolph's nose, a little to the holly and to the Frosty's tree top hat, and to our ribbon on our presents. And then I also added a little on Santa's white of his hat and his shirt. And then that is my project. Here's a closer look, and I will see you guys in the next video. Stay crafty.